On the economy, we're not even a month into 2024, and a new pattern is emerging. Americans are feeling more and more optimistic about the economy. Last week, a report by the University of Michigan showed that consumer sentiment, how consumers feel about the economy, surged by 29% over the last 2 months, the biggest 2-month increase in over 3 decades, in over 30 years. Higher consumer sentiment means Americans have more money in their pockets and are feeling better about their financial future. That is precisely what the Democratic agenda is all about: lowering costs, increasing wages, fueling economic growth. That's why Democrats passed historic legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Infrastructure Law, and more. When you pass an ambitious agenda like the ones the Democrats have passed under President Biden, it can take some time for the effects to take hold. But by now, the signs are getting clearer and clearer. Under President Biden, under Democratic leadership, the country is on the right track. Real wages are rising. In fact, paychecks have outpaced inflation over the past year, meaning people's paychecks are going further. Inflation is cooling down, now to 3.4%. When we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, it was over 8%. Unemployment is falling. The economy created 2.7 million new jobs last year, more jobs than any year of the Trump administration. And manufacturing investment levels are at an all-time high, again, more than double the peak of the Trump administration. That's the difference between Democratic and Republican leadership. When Democrats were elected into office, we passed legislation to lower costs, to bring American manufacturing back, to lower prescription drug costs, which is already happening, and invest in science and innovation. But what about the hard right? What about what's going on with our Republican colleagues? Well, look at what they spend time talking about: shutting down the government. That's what the hard right does. We're getting things done for the American people. They're talking about shutting down the government, pushing America towards default. Amazingly, the hard right, which has a lot of sway in the House and too much in the Senate, said default would be a good thing. Attacking a woman's right to choose, wasting time on sham impeachments, and drastic cuts to veterans aid, nutrition programs, education, federal law enforcement. No wonder some Republicans are so concerned they have no real accomplishments to show the American people. The difference, frankly, is night and day. Democrats are focused on lowering costs, more jobs, and more money in people's pockets. But the hard right is consumed by chaos, bullying, cutting in vital investments, making things worse. They want to make things worse. Somehow that's their credo. The Republican frontrunner for president has made it abundantly clear that he's not running on making people's lives better, but rather on airing his personal political grievances, as we saw in last night's so-called victory speech. So, we still have a long way to go to make our economy better. We're working better for families, but the evidence is growing that under President Biden, we're headed in the right direction, and Americans are seeing it for themselves. I yield the floor and
Greetings, friends. They want to pass this. Lawmakers in the House of Representatives are pushing for the approval of a new tax deal. Millions of Americans could benefit from this package. But the plan is facing pushback from Republicans. Some say this could lead to an ousting of Mike Johnson as House Speaker. My dear friends, please make sure that you watch until the end of this video. Also, every Friday, I will be announcing several winners for the Walmart gift card giveaway. If you would like to enter these weekly giveaway, friends, please click and like several of my videos, and then comment below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, friends, the greater your chances of winning these weekly giveaways. According to The Hill, a bipartisan deal that would reduce business taxes while expanding the child tax credit has set up a dilemma for House Speaker Mike Johnson. This is as he decides whether to bypass objections from within his own ranks to bring it to the floor as soon as next week. Pushback to the tax bill from hardline conservatives means Speaker Johnson and GOP leadership have to make a choice between pushing through a bipartisan win for business or minimizing intra-party turmoil. With a $78 billion total price tag, the package would expand the child tax credit through tax year 2025 for an estimated $33 billion. The credit itself has had a tumultuous past few years, and if the current legislation passes, it would be a victory for Democrats. The child tax credit was expanded significantly under President Biden in the 2021 American Rescue Plan, which led to a historic reduction in childhood poverty in the United States. But the popular measure expired at the end of that year. Then those gains were soon reversed, and child poverty once increased to more than doubling from 4 million in 2021 to 9 million in 2022. The poorest American families, which qualified for $3,600 payments under the expanded credit, received $0 once it expired. The new legislation is not as generous as the 2021's, but it would make a number of complicated changes to the credit that would increase the credit amount for about 16 million children. One of the most significant changes is that would increase the maximum credit per child from $1,600 to $2,000 by the year 2025. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and the White House have already given their stamps of approval. The Democratic support could be another political risk for Republicans, who are extremely reluctant to give President Biden any wins this election year. The compromise measure struck between Smith and Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden was reported out of the House panel in a 40-3 vote last week. With one of the smallest House majorities in the history, House GOP leaders have utilized the suspension process to pass 2 stopgap government funding bills since Mike Johnson became House Speaker. The House Ways and Means Committee says that the bill has pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-America tax provisions, saying it will give $185 billion in tax incentives over 2 years. But months of internal gridlock over government spending have shown that there is little desire for compromise, with some Republicans even floating a move to force a vote on ousting Johnson from speakership. There is also some big news in Pennsylvania. Eligible renters and property owners can now apply for rebates through the Pennsylvania Property Tax and Rent Rebate Program. The program provides rent and property relief to older residents and those with disabilities whose household income is $45,000 a year or less. To qualify for this money, residents must be at least 65 years old or at least 18 years old for those with disabilities. Widows and widowers 50 and older can also qualify. The household income cap of $45,000 was raised from $35,000 by a bipartisan bill signed by Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in 2023. The new law set the income cap to rise yearly with inflation and also increase the amount of rebate money that applicants can receive. So depending on income, applicants can be eligible for as much as $1,000 in rebates, up from $650 before the new law, as well as extra rebates for some property owners and renters, depending on their income, property tax, and where they reside. Well, my magnificent and most marvelous friends, that is the end of my daily stimulus update video for this Friday. My dear friends, thank you very much for being part of this community. The winners of today's Walmart gift card giveaway is Melanie Barnes and Music Loved 5982. Congratulations to both of you. To claim your gift cards, please check your notifications page and send me a message. Or, dear friends, you could message me on my Facebook page. Thank you, and have a wonderful and very blessed weekend.